Hello and welcome to the Outpost Frequencies from the lastmovieoutpost.com for all your movie news, reviews, and everything cool about film. This evening, you've got myself, George Lucas, hosting, and with us, as always, is Drunken Yoda.
Hello, everyone.
And we've got
but before you go on, I want everybody to see I've got my Halloween candy, I got my Illuminati cup, and I have the Halloween candy in a Christmas bowl because what's more terrifying than knowing that the Christmas holidays are right around the corner?
And we've got a special guest with us tonight, one of the writers from thelastmovieoutpost.com, and that is Sean. Hello, Sean.
Hi.
Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good.
I've got my pumpkin t-shirt on, and I've decorated the house by not cleaning it, and so there's cobwebs everywhere.
I put up orange lights. That's something, right?
Yeah,
nice.
that counts.
I think so.
Well, it is. Yes, it's the end of October already, and it's Halloween. Ooh. Because obviously it's very scary. Over here in the UK, we don't make a big deal of it at all. There is literally orange. There's pumpkin shaped chocolate, and that's it. But obviously, you guys in America, you make a bit more of a bigger deal of it, don't you?
Well, mostly we just have the trick or treaters. I think it's also a chance for the 20 and 30 somethings like to have their Halloween parties where women get to dress as slutty as possible, and I think that was a very nice change for Halloween over the last 10 years. I approve of the slutty Halloween costumes.
It's the one thing I do miss over here, unfortunately. Yeah, I just have to go to Instagram and look up pictures and sort of do it from that way.
Do you think the Queen has ever dressed up as a naughty nurse or
who?
The Queen.
The Queen.
I mean, now you've said that is going to haunt my dreams for the next few nights.
Maybe in her youth, I hope, but now I kind
of want to Photoshop it.
Oh my God!
No, just stay away from that. Okie doke. So we are going to start with a little bit of news, aren't we, Yoda?
Yes. So I've been checking out the little bit of the Alec Baldwin piece. What I'm hearing is people have called it and you know what, Sean, you are a great guy to have on here for this because that is much more up your alley as far as how guns work and all that kind of stuff than for me. But my understanding is anybody.
For me.
Yeah, and the British guy, let's get him out of here. I don't know. So it's not a misfire. It was I fired the gun. I pulled the trigger and I fired the gun. Yeah. He did not check the gun before he pulled the trigger. He aimed it at a person for whatever reason. It doesn't really matter. And he pulled the trigger. What I'm also hearing is that the gun was sitting on a cart. And the woman who is the armorer did not necessarily check that gun out. Like somebody was using it for target practice, and then somebody said, yeah, it's a cold gun. And she was possibly not involved. I don't know. The whole thing sounds like a complete shit show. And in the end, Alec Baldwin may get brought up on charges because from a legally speaking, he held the gun, he pulled the trigger, he didn't check the gun, he aimed it at somebody. Would you say I'm on the right track there, Sean?
Yeah, I don't know why they call it a misfire. Misfire is when you pull the trigger on a live round and nothing happens, a dud. That's what a misfire. What he did is a negligent discharge, which is he fired a live round without meaning to, and that's the real term. Some people will call it an accidental discharge. That was what people called it years ago, but then people were like, well, no, the accident, it's negligent because if you follow the very simple firearms rules, something like that, you won't kill anybody. It's a perfect little set of things to do, and there's just no way that you'll end up killing somebody that way. But that's why they stopped kind of saying accidental. Accidental would be something mechanically goes wrong with the gun, which is so rare. These things have been around. They know how they work. It's very rare for it to mechanically go wrong. But so negligence is what it is. He, ultimately, when you're handed a gun, it's up to you to make sure that you're using it safely or it's loaded or not. You know what I mean? So
yeah. So you're saying that a gun bouncing down the stairs like in True Lies is not going to just start spraying bullets everywhere.
Yeah, that's movie nonsense.
I thought True Lies was a documentary.
Yeah, I mean, but it's
Arnie
still a
thought
drama.
it was.
So, Yoda, you were saying with this then?
So I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that he is in a world of trouble. Probably is not going to get out of this criminally. I think that he's going to be in big trouble, and I don't think it's going to. I just don't think it's going to end up being good for him. He's the guy that did it, and
isn't it also the case, as far as I've read with the information that I've had, that being the producer, he is also responsible for overseeing the whole thing. So I mean, with the not misfire, the negligence discharge, it's ultimately it comes down to the producer who is responsible for what weapons are on set and what weapons aren't set and who is handling them and that kind of thing as well.
Well, yeah, I think that that's the other piece that he is in deep trouble with, is that he's the guy in charge of people that are on set.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if he's an executive producer or producer. If you're a producer, you've got leverage. You are having day-to-day duties. If you're an executive producer, you're getting a little film credit that gives you more money. That's varies from film to film. Some executive producers have a lot of say or a lot of creativity, but they don't necessarily handle the hiring and firing of people. So I'm really kind of gray on that one. I don't know.
Okay.
But in most cases, if he's got any say on who's on the set and who's not, and whether or not, I mean, I look at it, there is definitely a negligence charge coming for somebody.
Yeah, there's some civil at least, because obviously he didn't try. He wasn't trying to kill him, but he's definitely going to have some big time civil liabilities, and then maybe some kind of criminal misdemeanor. Because obviously he wasn't trying to kill him. I mean, that we know of. Who knows with him, but.
What bothers me the most about all this is the way the social and I know we're getting into kind of more political stuff, but this is about a movie set, so there's nothing happens in a vacuum. But I think what bothers me the most about this is that the same people who are bending over backwards to defend Alec Baldwin because he's on the right side of the issues are generally the same crowd that have that want Kyle Rittenhouse strung up.
Yeah.
And those of you who don't know, Kyle Rittenhouse is the guy in Wisconsin, a 17-year-old, who on every video is.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry to stop you, but YouTube is very sensitive about discussing Kyle and his case, so I just wanted to let you know that before we.
That's true. The algorithm
the screen's gone
screw
blank.
us.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Rainbow bars. Boo!
Yeah.
I think let's finish it by saying that Rust is going to have to make an awful lot of money in the box office to.
Yeah, it is.
With all the lawsuits and everything else, it's going to be one of the most expensive productions ever.
Yeah, if it comes out, I mean,
I know
they've stopped shooting, so thank God. They keep shooting.
I mean, well, stop shooting at least.
Unintended. But I mean, will they finish the movie? I mean, they you would imagine they would, because there's still a lot of money and jobs and stuff tied up in this.
Maybe
with it being. with it being so public, I mean,
Oh, they finished The Crow.
but then, I was going to say, that's just exactly what I was going to say. That The Crow still came out, and there were still scenes that they had, because they computer generated Brandon Lee in a couple of the scenes, didn't they, towards the end of the film?
I think they used some old footage, and I'm not like the Crow lore guy, but I think they did, and then they used the stand-in, and even back then they did. It's hard to tell he's not in all of it, even from back then, you know.
Yeah, so Rust is going to be interesting. If they do manage to even get it finished. I think that the way the whole situation is going to play out, like I say, is going to be very interesting for all concerned. And whatever your views are on Alec, obviously we do hope he is going to be okay, I suppose, because nobody deserves to be put in that situation. That's where I see it, at least.
I mean, no. I'm not going to get all weird on this one. I'm just saying that you say nobody deserves to be put in this situation, not for his political views or because he's a douchebag, but if he's been completely unsafe on this set, hasn't been, then that's where you get what you deserve. You should have been more, but I'm just talking within the realm of this particular situation, not because he, had an insane voicemail to his daughter.
It's going to be interesting to see the way the whole thing plays out, and obviously we'll keep everybody up to dated with all the news that we find on the Last Movie Outpost.
Yep.
And speaking of, it's a terrible segue, but we have had it. Like I say, it's now the 31st of October, and we have had 31 days of horror.
Yes.
If you've been on the site,
let's talk about something a lot more fun, like a guy chainsawing women to death.
Yeah, but it's not real, is it?
Well, no. That's the
I'm just thinking none of these are real, are they? No, I don't think so. They are all made up. So we started, some of the writers decided to start putting together, like I say, basically their favorite horror films. And it actually got difficult to narrow it down to just 31. Because I probably could have done 31 on my own because I do like a good horror. But let's break them down. So let's talk about each one. Briefly, longly, wherever it goes. The first one was it was one of yours, I think, Sean. It was Return of the Living Dead. That was one that you. Now, give us a brief overview of the movie.
So it's sort of for legal reasons, it's kind of a sequel to Night of the Living Dead, but Dan O'Bannon, the guy that wrote Alien, come up with the idea with the original story, and they made it into sort of a comedy horror. And the whole premise of the movie is Night of the Living Dead was real, but a VA hospital turned loose some kind of chemical that reanimated bodies, and so the bodies got put in a container and shipped. They were supposed to, some dumping ground, but they end up in a little medical warehouse in Louisville, Kentucky, and these two goofballs accidentally open one of them up, and things go crazy from there. Gets out. They try to, unlike the original movie, you can't kill them by destroying the brain, so they try to burn the body, which releases into the atmosphere and makes sort of an acid rain that then drops down and reanimates the entire city cemetery. And then it's lots of fun. It's a horror comedy, but it's played straight, I think. I think it's played straight. It's funny, but it's played straight.
I'd say it was played sort of tongue in cheek, that everybody knew what they were making. I wouldn't say it was played straight, but like I say, everybody is kind of sort of every now and then you expect somebody to look at the camera and wink to sort of like you say, don't open that. What, really?
but I mean, it's not slapstick, It's not. I don't think it veers into Shaun of the Dead territory, but it's a black comedy, I think, and probably.
Now you say it's a sequel to Return Night of the Living Dead. Does it ignore Dawn of the Dead, or is it more of a okay?
Yeah, it ignores that. So what's his one of the creators of Night got the rights to of the Living Dead, where Romero got of the Dead, and so they both went on to make their own sequel. And Dawn, of course, a masterpiece. And then the other guy, not Romero, he put this one together. And Dan O'Bannon sort of took it and was like, you know what, he fiddled with it and probably deserves most of the credit for the story. He also directed his directorial debut, as a matter of fact. And man, what else could you want for your first movie? It's a great movie.
Yeah.
You got Linnea Quigley in it, dancing dude, which there's nothing in the movie as horrifying as current day Linnea Quigley. But back then, no, I don't think anybody would turn that scene down.
And I'm right in saying that it was Tom Savini that did the special effects for it?
No, it was not. I can't remember.
Stan?
No, neither one of them. It was, yeah. It's the great special effects in it, but it was not the.
Yeah.
Neither, I think maybe one of it wasn't Savini, but one of the other two I think stepped in very for the at the beginning where they chopped the reanimated medical cadaver's head off. I think maybe he had something to do with that, as in because they got desperate, they couldn't get it to work. But I don't quote me on that. There's a great documentary you can watch on YouTube for free called More Brains. And it's a very well done documentary about the making of the movie. It's got everybody that was in it interviewed pretty in depth, and Dan O'Bannon even a little bit before he passed away.
Didn't this one star the guy that starred in Halloween 3? God, what's his name? The blonde hair and the mustache.
No, he's not in that. He's not in
that. Okay,
I
must be thinking of something else. Night of the Creeps, maybe that's it.
Yeah, an interesting thing is the Friday the 13th Part 5, the guy that's kills the fat kid who offers him a candy bar. That's the same actor that plays is in Night of the Living Dead. He's the one with all the chains and stuff. The first one to die.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I have just quickly looked it up, and no, it wasn't. I thought Tom Savini is because I watched the documentary on Tom Savini, and I know a lot of his films were mentioned, and like I say, I just thought it was either him or Sam, but it wasn't, because with that Return of the Living Dead, obviously one of the main characters is the kills, which are done beautifully well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got some great. It's very easy to think that he had a hand in that movie, but he did. But anyway, it's got a very bleak ending. It's pitch perfect for it. But it's a lot of fun. It is my favorite. Now again, like we were saying before we started the show, I don't think it's the best horror movie ever made, but it's probably the one I have the most fun watching. So, it's kind of like my favorite. But I would not call it like the best, but it's my favorite.
No,
very entertaining.
Funny. I've spoken to people, and sometimes you can sort of say what's your favorite movie and what's the best movie, and they can be two different things. You know, like I say, if you just enjoy a movie, even if it is absolutely stupid, so what? If you enjoy it, you enjoy it. There's nothing wrong with that.
I think The Thing to me is the best horror movie ever made, and I put it right up there as enjoyment. But if I just want to be entertained and I don't, want to, I love Return of the Living Dead. It's one of those that. Like, I just want to have a fun time with something that's horror related,
I completely love The Shining, but it's not a fun movie to sit down and watch, and it is quite a deep movie. And I know if I'm going to put it on, I've got to sit there and concentrate for 2 hours to sort of get anything out of it. You got to be in the mood for it.
I don't know about that, George. I mean, I think it has a pretty. I think it's very entertaining that Scatman Carruthers spends the whole movie trying to get there only to walk in and get an axe in his gut.
That's unintentionally. I think it's unintentionally.
I just laugh every time. I was like, he spent the whole. You watch him get in the snow cat, and he's trudging up the hill. He finally gets.
He's going to save the day. He's going to save the day. Oh.
The Simpsons even noticed that with Groundskeeper Willie. He had the same thing. He's like, I'm bad at this.
We're going to get onto that. So let's talk about the next one. This one was one of mine. And going from the comedy horror, we went to something which was much more serious. Now, like I say, when I actually wrote this article, I found about 3 titles of this. And the one that I've got it down as, Who Could Kill a Child? Now, this was made early 70s. A couple go to a quiet island. He's a writer and he wants to quietly write. And he went to this island when he was younger. And when they get there, all the adults are gone. And all that is left are kids. Now, have either of you guys seen this film?
I have not.
Me neither.
I've seen similar, of course you got Lord of the Flies, but that doesn't really have adults. And then you got like Children of the Corn. And
it's closer to Children of the Corn. Basically, something is making these children go crazy and kill everyone. And one thing that I do like about it, and it's not a spoiler, is it's never explained. And I kind of like that it's just something weird is happening, but don't explain what's happening. Just
I like that too.
It's there's bits in there I really want to say, but they are kind of massive spoilers. I mean,
for a 45-year-old movie, go ahead. I mean, we're okay.
There is one scene where the main guy, the protagonist, has a machine gun, and he is faced off with a bunch of kids. And I was watching it thinking,
he mows them down.
And I was thinking, I wonder which direction they're going to take this in. Oh, yes, they're going to mow down the children.
Oh, I've got to watch this now. I was like, I might check that out, but now you've sold me.
That's actually not the worst scene in the film.
I've really got to see this now.
it was the whole thing is very creepily done all the way through. The first sort of 2 acts, there is kind of nothing that's going on. And then towards the end, towards the second half of the movie, and the third act is I thought was brilliant, and it is got one of those endings that I do love. Like I say, it's an old movie. It is very creepy. The kids in it are weird, like you say, that kind of Children of the Corn, Village of the Damned type feel to them. If you haven't seen it, it is worth watching. That's Who Could Kill a Child? Would you kill a child?
Yeah, I'm definitely checking it out. I did not know about the mowing down. I'm sold now on that.
I applaud child death.
In any form, yes. well, in any movie form, should we say? Let's just get that clear.
Right, in any movie form.
Movies only, make believe, of course.
Yes, sure.
The next one actually was another one of mine, and this was coming back to one of my favorite directors, Ben Wheatley, In the Earth. Now, this was, if you know Ben Wheatley has recently done, oh goodness me, what's it called? High Rise was one of his, but his early stuff, A Field in England, which you may not have heard of, is about some Civil War people. It's set in the Civil War, and they capture the devil. Very bizarre movie. And he also did things like The Kill List, which is a very unusual film as well. This goes back to his roots, and it is set in the woods. There are 2 people that are they're going there to research an ancient legend. The third act I kind of describe as if you put the Blair Witch Project in a blender with 2001.
That sounds terrible.
It's not everyone's cuppa, and it is one of those films that I did have to then go online and try and see the explanation of the way it went out. But I really liked it because I like Ben Wheatley. I like that very unusual thing, so I quite enjoyed it. But again, I don't think it's a movie you guys have seen.
No, I'm sorry to say I have not.
That's all right.
Yeah, not one that's on my list.
I never even heard of it until you wrote about it.
But I find that interesting that we're not picking, the obvious ones here. There are some obvious ones, there's some famous ones, but then we've got a few in there that maybe people have never seen, and I'm, certainly some that I'm going to add to my list, especially the one where we mow down children. I'm going to keep coming back to that because I'm a horrible person.
In the Earth, it just, for me, obviously being British, I recognised the woods, as in not where that it was actually filmed, but I have been to woods like that. I have seen things like that and that kind of thing. And also Ben Wheatley, because he's British. Again, his movies to Americans may be hidden because they are very, I don't want to say out there, but they are very, what's the word? Very David Lynch, I think is a good way of putting it, like Eraserhead kind of thing, that you sort of watch it and think, what have I just seen?
Pretentious, was that the word you was looking for?
No, see, I quite like him. I can understand though why somebody would say that, but yeah, you could put it that way. I liked In the Earth, and if you get a chance to watch it, if you like Ben Wheatley and like his early stuff, if you know who Ben Wheatley is, then you'll probably enjoy it. He's down to direct the Meg 2, which I'm a bit disappointed in, really, because I think his sort of indie stuff is better. But that's one of those things. So we then go on to, I think again, Sean, this was one of yours, The Reanimator.
Oh yeah, it's a classic. I mean, who hasn't heard of that, right? So, based on H.P. Lovecraft's story, brought to the modern day of 1980, whatever it was, and in a medical school, Herbert Rest comes there to continue his research on reanimating the dead, and he sort of talks a guy into helping him through the method of bringing his dead cat back to life in front of him. Hijinks ensue. They get into the medical, I guess the cadaver ward of the medical school, the college, and bring some back. And the dean gets killed. They bring him back to life. It's kind of it's a little bit of a hard plot to kind of.
This is Barbara Babcock, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to say, she is the bravest actress ever to have to be strapped on that table butt naked with the dead reanimated head working its way towards her nether regions to give her
head.
Yeah. Like it's actual head giving head. Yeah. It's bizarre. And I guess you call it a horror comedy almost.
Yeah, it is a black horror. Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, it's H.P. Lovecraft, so it's a little bit out there.
A little bit, yes. And of course, I love. Oh God, what's his name? Who's the star?
Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffrey Combs. I love that guy. He was amazing in Star Trek. He played so many different roles in Star Trek, especially on Deep Space Nine. And he's done some good stuff in the DC animated universe. He was the Question, I think, and he played it beautifully. And I just love his I don't know, it's kind of his deadpan droll voice, and he's suitably creepy in here. He did another one also that Peter Jackson did, which was the Frighteners, yeah. And he was fun in that one too. But yeah, he's great in this, and it's not for everyone.
Yeah, it's not for everybody, but it is a classic. And they made there's 2 sequels to it, Bride of the Reanimator, which is good, but it doesn't get to the level of the first one. And then there's a third one made in 90 or 91 called Beyond Reanimator, and whatever.
Yeah,
it's usually the way, isn't it, that the first one's quite successful, and so they think, oh no, we need to make sequels now, and those sequels just never sort of amount to very much.
I recommend the first sequel, Bride of the Reanimator.
Okay.
But it not as like a, if you really watch Reanimator and love it, then you'll like the second one. Okay. And you'd even like the third one, but you gotta love, if it's like if you really are like, man, I gotta have some more of Reanimator, then you'll be fine with it. But the first one is,
I don't think I've ever heard that expression. Somebody sort of say, man, I need some more Reanimator.
I will say, I mean, we talk about the shocking moment, but the cat is freaking hilarious.
Yeah,
I love the reanimated dead cat. It is, and them trying to get it, and it's just gone berserk. That's some funny stuff, man.
It's got some great quotable lines in it too. What am I supposed to do? Leave a note? Cat dead, details later. It's got some really good stuff in it.
It's a good movie. I love it. So what's next on the list here, George?
Now we go sort of almost deadly serious with Bone Tomahawk.
Oh, and yeah, so that I love.
This is a movie. I mean, this is probably one of the best movies that's been made in the last X amount of years. It is incredible. Sean, tell us about it.
Yeah, so directed by S. Craig Zoller, who's making modern exploitation movies that are every bit, art and also exploitation like in the old days. and it's set in the Old West. And these two drifters rob a caravan of people making their way to California or something. I don't know, but they stumble into what seems to be an Indian burial ground or Native American or First Peoples Nations, whatever I don't know, whichever one's correct now. But so one of them gets killed immediately. They attack
Casino owners burial ground.
Casino Americans.
That's
so anyway,
there you
go. The survivor runs to this little local town, and he gets seen by a deputy out on his walk. And he goes against the sheriff, which is Kurt Russell. The movie's going to be good right off the bat. Kurt Russell's in it. So they go to the bar and find him. He tries to get away. Sheriff shoots him in the leg. They take him to the cell. They go fetch a nurse and to treat the leg wound. And everybody goes home for the night. The nurse stays there with the deputy and the wounded guy. And overnight, they get abducted by what you think are Indians. So the sheriff puts together his deputy and the husband of the nurse, and then a local gunslinger, and they go cross country to the area where these Indians that turned out to be troglodytes, and they're cannibal troglodytes, and so a lot of stuff happens in between. They get into some various little troubles and stuff. And
not just troglodytes. Cannibal troglodytes.
Yeah. So,
yeah. Is there anything worse?
Yeah, no, I think not.
Their luck goes downhill the entire way, and then they get there, and then things go horribly wrong. It has probably one of the most gruesome death scenes I believe I've ever. I mean, you're talking cannibal Holocaust, cannibal ferox levels of gore. I mean, I can't think of a worse way to die than one of the deaths we see at the end of the movie. And it's a great movie, and it's shot like a art house. It's just beautiful.
I think one of the things about it is that it's great. It's just a slow burn, because what you sort of said, that last bit is only sort of, I would say, about sort of 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes. But the build up, and you get to know all these characters, and then what happens to them is just horrendous.
It is a gut punch, because you're expecting just a modern, little bit more violent modern Western, and then it turns very weird very fast at the end, and it's really like a slow boil, and then bam, it hits you.
Not to mention, because it's not a horror, but I mean, I did watch Bone Tomahawk, and then I decided to watch his next movie, which was Dragged Across Concrete.
And he come out with Brawl in Cell Block 99. You should watch that if you haven't seen that.
No. That I do love, but Dragged Across Concrete I hadn't seen, and so I did watch that. And again, that is a slow build of a movie with, again, an ending which, just like you say, you feel like you've been punched in the gut after it. He is a great director, and we did do an article quite recently that he's signed up for 3 more films, I think it is, that he's doing.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
I'm looking forward to them.
He's my favorite. Right now, I would say he's making the movies I think are the most interesting and that appeal to me anyway. Him and what's his name, Jeremy Saulnier, that did Green Room.
Yeah, love him. I think, actually, do you know what? Blue Ruin is one of my all-time favorite films. I think it's a slow boil of a movie, and it's fantastic.
I know I need to see these. I just. These movies, these directors, I'm sure they're great, but they're all making movies that just, by the end of it, it's like, gotta go kill myself now. And I have trouble getting into those,
I don't say I like that, but I do find it's like, I mean, I still haven't seen the new Bond, but I've always referred to this, is with James Bond, there's James Bond, there's a bad guy, I wonder how it's going to end. Whereas with these directors that we've just mentioned, you're watching it and thinking, are they going to be okay? I'm not sure if they're going to make it through or not. A bit like kind of Game of Thrones. That I still remember in Game of Thrones when Sean Bean had his head on the block, and I'm thinking, nah, he'll be fine. Oh,
yeah. Well, I mean, you should have been clued in. It's Sean Bean.
Sean Bean.
Of course, he's going to die. I mean, that's actually almost a warm feeling. It's like, okay, everything's right with the universe. Sean Bean's dead.
Yeah, that's right. But with it, like I say, the last 2 directors, they just make these movies where you're not sure which way it's going to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I like about it is you're not going in, fine, going and see a film where you want a happy ending and everything else. That's great. But every now and then, just surprise yourself. That's what I quite like about them.
Yeah. Well, they make, they're modern exploitation movies, so you really, and people aren't used to that anymore,
No.
Big blockbusters, you don't get that. But when you're making stuff like that, you're like, wow, this is going to be bleak. When you sit down for
I think part of it is that people want to go see something. I mean, we've been living in a bleak world for the last 2 years. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
do I really want to go see something that's that bleak? I find myself not in the mood for those type, and I've heard great things. I mean, I'm not trying to crap on the movie or anything. I've heard great things about Bone Tomahawk, Blue Ruin, all of these that you've mentioned. I just haven't, it's like I'm already stuck in Blue Ruin right now. Thanks.
I was going to say, living in England, all these films cheer me up. So
finally, somebody has it worse than me.
Yeah, I think that's a line from Fawlty Towers.
Well, I guess things aren't that bad.
In Fawlty Towers with John Cleese, and he says, there's always somebody worse off with yourself. Oh, I'd like to meet him. I could do with a laugh. So the next one actually was one of yours, Yoda, and that was Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I say I don't like these terrible downer movies, and yet
going on about knowing down
the original was a comedy, wasn't it?
Actually, the second one was almost, because, and I'll scroll down here. The second one, the poster was based off of The Breakfast Club, which was, I think, one of the greatest posters ever made. But the problem is it did take some teeth out of the movie. The first movie is a descent into madness, and it is. There's a lot that's going on there that I don't know if that's what they meant. I don't know if that's what Tobe Hooper meant, or if he was just trying to do a real gritty. And it was filmed in that pseudo documentary style, so it was shown like in ways that nobody had ever seen before, and it's not a gory movie. That was what kind of shocked me the last couple times I saw it, was that there's not that much blood. I mean, you think a guy running around with a chainsaw, it's going to be a splatter fest. It's not at all. It's just all about atmosphere and tension, and just keeps ratcheting it up and ratcheting it up as you start in with this mess at a cemetery, and somebody has done all these weird things with bodies and they show it there while there's a voiceover going on in the background, and weirdly, one of the guys that does the voiceover is John Larroquette. Which I was kind of surprised to find out, but
I did not know that.
I didn't know it either. But he does this. So these kids, they want to see if their grandmother's grave has been disturbed, and it's his sister and brother with their friends, and the two friends are kind of a couple, but there's five of them, right? So there's one odd guy out, and then the sister and brother, the one brother's in a wheelchair, and he is hands down the most irritating character ever put to screen, which takes balls to do that with a guy in a wheelchair, right? But he is the worst. And they go to this the old farmhouse that the grandmother used to live in. At this point, it's kind of one of those farmhouses you see on the side of the road that's been boarded up or abandoned, because nobody bought it or bothered to do anything with it, so it just sits there. And they check it out, and then up the road they need to get some gas, or they're waiting on gas from this weird gas station where this guy has a lot of barbecue in there. Turns out we're pretty sure the barbecue is people, the Soylent Green barbecue. So they go up to the house, and the first guy goes up to the house. He gets whacked, and then just goes into convulsions from the blow on the head from Leatherface, and the guy drags him in, and then the girl goes looking, and she ends up in one of the living room where it's just covered with bones and feathers and human remains and stuff, and she freaks out and then gets dragged, attacked, and stuck on a meat hook, and then thrown into the freezer. And one by one, so they're getting all picked off. And finally, Sally, the sister, is the only one left at the end, and they don't kill her right away. They bring her over for a meal where it's just this weird family with their undead dad, or their grandpa.
I never could figure out, is he dead? They just keeping him around, because it's like I've watched that movie 100 times and I've never been able to figure out, is he's dead or just so old that he's Joe Biden or something? I don't know.
He's dead. He just doesn't know it.
Okay.
That's all I interpreted it, because he's clearly a mess, but he moves and he starts sucking the blood off of her and all that. And finally she gets away, and Leatherface is left swinging the chainsaw. You guys have probably all seen it. So the thing is that there's a lot of mentions about vegetarianism and slaughterhouses. There's a lot of kind of allusions to the death of the rural lifestyle and how it's in decay, and that family is clearly a decadent, decaying family. So you can kind of see all this symbolism, and I think that whether on purpose or not, I think that's why the movie continues to resonate, because there seems to be a lot of layers of subtext going on of how the past and either the meeting lifestyle or just the rural lifestyle, we are so divorced from that as a civilization. I mean, you don't kill your own food anymore. You go to the supermarket, it's all prepared, it looks nice. You don't have to do that stuff anymore. And it's only maybe 100 years ago that a great majority of this country was killing and eating, growing and killing its own food. So the whole idea of slaughterhouses and groceries and supermarkets is such a new thing. And we are not, we got some people that just could never get away from that lifestyle and, turn into insane cannibals, I guess. So there's a lot that's going on in the movie, and it's and of course, just from a horror standpoint, it's just great. It's just a really good, ratchet up the tension. And you didn't need to be insanely gory with it. I mean, you showed a lot of dried bones and skeletons, but there wasn't a ton of blood. Let me finish this up. I said what is kind of funny is that one of the parts of blood you see in it, where they prick her finger and the old man starts sucking the finger, that's actually real blood, because they couldn't get it right. So they just screw it and cut her finger, and she's sucking the blood. So it's probably one of the few horror movies that actually has real blood in it, as little as it might be. So take that for whatever it's worth,
I think the guy, when he cuts his hand in the hitchhiker, is probably the most blood in the entire movie, isn't it?
Yeah, that's where he smears it on the van. The hitchhiker from hell, it's like takes a picture of you, then he puts it on a thing and sets it on fire. It's like, get this guy out of here! What the hell? If nothing else, that film said, kids, don't pick up hitchhikers.
Yeah. Hitchhiking now it's lost all its fun.
It's definitely you need to be thinking about anybody you pick up now. So
right, the next one, it was actually, I think it was Sean's slashers. Now with it, I don't think we're going to go over those. What we're going to say to people is if you want to have a read of Sean's top 10 slashers, find it on the website.
Not this Sean. That's the
other Sean. But there's an excellent list of his top 10 slashers, which is worth looking through. But let's talk about the movies that we actually talked about, I think, because otherwise we are going to be, it's not 31, we're going to be here all night. So the next one was one of mine, which was Ringu, which was the original Japanese version of The Ring. Now, when I first heard of this, all I heard was kids watch a videotape and 7 days later they die. That is all I knew. And I borrowed, funny enough, the actual VHS video from a friend who'd recorded it off the TV back in the day. Film 4 didn't used to have adverts in their film, so they had it, and he lent me this DVD or this video, and it was late one night, so I turned off all the lights, put my headphones on, and thought, oh, sit down and watch this. It genuinely terrified me. It was absolutely fantastic, because I'm not spoiling anything now, because the American version's come out and everybody knows what the ending is. But he said the first 80 minutes will creep you out, but the last 10 minutes will scare the living out of you. And the way the movie.
Now, just to be clear, the videotape they watch is an old SpongeBob rerun. Is that correct?
hey, there's nothing wrong with SpongeBob.
Well, if he comes out of the TV and kills you.
Well, but that was the beauty of it, that with all these movies, there's always a reason why the killing is going on, and then the main protagonist has to try and figure out why it's going on. And you think that Samara, I think she was called.
Yeah.
No, Sadako was in the original one. She was down this well, and they find the body down the well, and you think, oh, goodness me, the curse is broken, everything's fine. But then you follow not the main protagonist, but her male friend, and you're thinking, oh, I thought, it finished. And then the scene at the end where the TV comes on, and you think, hang on a minute, and then the well appears on the screen. When she crawls out of the TV, I remember the first time I watched it, I was squirming. It was absolutely brilliantly done. It was so well done. I did watch it again recently, and it didn't quite have that magic.
Yeah, you gotta it's a one and done. As good as it is, it's a one and done.
Unfortunately, but because I've always said that with a lot of films, I've just I've just stopped following Edgar Wright on social media, because he keeps going on about Last Night in Soho. And when you don't know anything about a movie and then you are so surprised by it, it's pure magic. And like you say, that happens only once, really, because it didn't happen again. But the original Ringu is fantastic. The American remake was okay, but it just didn't have that magic of the first one. Not at all.
They're a lot like in a way like The Sixth Sense. You that first time you watch it, the twist, and then after that, it's like, well, what's the rewatch value other than to go back and say like, oh, I see now all the things that. But really, that to really get you with that lightning strike, it's a one and done, unfortunately. But it's brilliant when it happens, though, isn't it?
I do, and also I have to mention, I mentioned this in the write-up. There's a British critic called Mark Kermode, who I cannot stand. He's a pretentious. Anyway, his introduction. Like I say, this was on what's called Film 4 over here, which is quite a big place. They actually make their own movies nowadays. And his introduction was incredibly pretentious, comparing it to so-and-so and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. But he actually introduces the movie by telling you what the end is. And actually says, and the moment where she crawls out of the TV will scare. And it was just kind of, and ever since that moment, I've hated Mark Kermode. Because I've obviously given away the ending now, but this is a movie which is 10, 15 years old now, so it's like fair dues. If you're introducing a movie that people have never seen before, you wouldn't. I imagine his review of Empire Strikes Back would have been, and the moment where, like, what? Oh God, and. Ringu, if you like I say, it's lost a little bit of that magic now, but if you get a chance to watch the original and you don't mind subtitles or you speak Japanese, I think it's still a very good movie.
It is for sure.
Just to interrupt here, some people are saying that you guys' voices and video were out of sync. I think I fixed that, but if any of you guys happen to be watching, you can give me a thumbs up or something on the YouTube chat or on the live stream chat on the Left Movie Outpost. I'd appreciate it.
People are never happy, are they?
No.
Free entertainment. And just moan about it. Well, I say entertainment.
And we have a whole site dedicating to moaning about free entertainment. I don't think we have any room to talk here, bud. Just saying.
The next one I've got on my list was The Guest.
Oh, great movie. So, guy gets discharged from the army and goes to visit the family of a dead army buddy. And they all really miss their dead son, and he sort of feels that role for him. He doesn't mean to, but it sort of happens. The mother's still grieving, and she sees this her dead son's army buddy as sort of I don't know, a fill-in in a way, or still the connection to him. And they insist that he stays, and he's a little bit more than what he says he is. And how do we go?
I'm going to say, don't spoil this. I have seen it once, and I must admit, I don't remember rating it, but I do want to revisit it to give it another chance.
It's excellent. I give it my highest recommendation. One way to without giving more away to the plot, because it'd be very easy to ruin it. One way to talk about it is it's a love letter to all of the '80s horror movies, the Terminator, action movie. It really calls back to all those things, but not in a pandering way. And great soundtrack, neon. It's what could you say? It's a great movie. It's a horror action, I would kind of call it. And
okay.
It's sort of like Terminator is a horror action movie, and it's a great movie. It popped up out of nowhere. The guy that did the movie before that was You're Next, which is a survival horror.
Now, see, You're Next I did put on near the beginning of the month, and I couldn't get through it because I thought the acting was terrible.
Well, that's probably true, but it was his first, sort of kind of big. Yeah, and he went on and he directed recently Godzilla versus King Kong, and I think they had him. Didn't they have him do like the Blair Witch sequel from a couple years ago? I think he directed that too.
See, I didn't even bother with that because I quite like the original, and so I didn't bother with it.
It's a great little movie. You can find it on Netflix. It's a great movie though. I just don't sleep on it. It's a great movie.
I will put it on the list and give it another try. Like I say, I just remember seeing it and not being massively impressed, but that was when it first came out. So I just need to revisit it. Now, the next one you guys may not have heard of. This was, it's not as funny as the book, but Threads. Now,
heartwarming film.
This was made in the 80s. I think it was made more of a TV movie about the nuclear situation, which was sort of threatening the world. I know a couple of big guys on the talkback said it was a sort of a propaganda film.
That was me that said that.
There you go. But with it was set in Sheffield, which is the middle of the UK, and a couple she's got pregnant before they got married, which was really frowned upon in the 80s. And the story is about then a nuclear attack between America and Russia. I was just going to say, you switched over and there's a picture of arachnophobia, but I mentioned arachnophobia. Anyway, I was thinking, that's not the right movie.
No, this is Threat. Why do you have a picture there of Threat? Yeah.
But
here, we'll do this one.
It basically follows the nuclear attack in England being sort of stuck in the middle of this with all the fallout and everything else. And it is horrific to watch. It does not pull any punches in any way, shape or form. And it's kind of one of those films that I always sort of say you probably shouldn't watch. But I'm glad I've seen it, because even if it was propaganda, I do think to myself, that is what could happen if in that situation. The ending, shall I spoil the ending for you?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I don't think we have to worry about nuclear war between us and Russia anymore. So you're okay.
Basically, with a lot of these films that they did, they kind of followed the story of the protagonists maybe a few months afterwards. This goes about 15, 16 years afterwards. And the girl who was pregnant, she ends up having the baby. The mother dies. The baby grows up speaking incredibly limited English, because obviously nobody's taught her any differently, and she gets raped. And the actual end of the movie is her giving birth to a stillborn baby. The baby is handed to her. She starts screaming, and it just cuts. And it was just, oh dear. I mean, like I say, I've seen some sort of stuff which is pretty messed up, but the end of that film was just, horrendous.
Yeah, that's the thing about that one and The Day After, which is a TV, propaganda movie made here about the same time, is that, Cold War it's like I always say, it's the best money that the Soviet Union didn't have to spend on, because a lot of the stuff from that time has been debunked about what they thought would happen, and there was all kinds of that crap. You remember let's see, there was the Manhattan Project where the boy makes his own nuclear bomb in science class, and then there was War Game, and then
hey, don't crap on War Games.
It's a great movie. Don't get me wrong, and Amazing Grace and Chuck, where all the school kids go on strike to make the superpowers disarm. It just I guess looking back, at the time, and of course we all lived through it. Is at the time it was always on your mind, and they were always hammering you with it. It very impactful at the time, but looking back at it, it's easy. I think it's easy to see it for what it really is. Doesn't make the movie any less.
No, fair enough. Yeah, no.
I really liked. So I don't know if you guys know. I live in the Kansas City area and The Day After was set in Kansas City and Lawrence, which is it's from me, it's barely 20 minutes away. So everything, and they did do some on location shots in Kansas City for The Day After. So then they, we're all watching it here, and it's one of the most grotesque, scary movies in the middle of the Cold War. I mean, what did it come out, like 1983 or something,
Yeah,
I mean,
or something, yeah.
So, yeah. And I mean, who knew that the Soviet Union would be no more in 8 years, it would be gone. But at that time, man, we're watching, and then you're seeing things like, these places,
Yeah.
and you're just like going, you just come to school the next day, just like, okay. So it was rough. I think War Games, one of the things I think nobody, yes, the whole thing about Whopper and the artificial intelligence was a little overblown, but everything else about computers in that movie was spot on accurate. And I really respect that movie for that, because when you watch something like Hackers and you're like, oh God. Or what's that one with Hugh Jackman?
Swordfish.
Swordfish, yeah, where we got to see Halle's berries.
Hey-o.
That's the thing you take away from that film, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing
I remember from it.
There's a scene in there where he's starting to hack, and it's like he's directing an orchestra or something, just doing all this, and it's like, stop using a keyboard so much, for one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that's but as far as
before the days of mice,
I guess my problem with this movie is that is it really horror, or is it really more drama with horrific elements in it?
I suppose.
Yeah, you're probably. I just see it as a Cold War propaganda film. It's got horror in it, and I think it's not. It's fine to be on the list, but it's hard for me to get past the propaganda value, of it. I guess is my.
For me, the list was, movies that scared me, and I remember as a child that scared me.
Well, you know what? Speaking of that, I still maintain, and I'm going to submit to you guys, that one of the scariest things you'll ever see was when you're a kid, is when Pinocchio starts to transform into the donkey.
Oh, yeah.
That is one of the. You show me somebody that watched that when they were 4 or 5, and now they might have forgotten, but if you bring it up to them again, you'll see that was actually a scary as shit little scene in that movie.
The only film I ever remember actually hiding behind the sofa was Close Encounters. At the end of Close Encounters, where the aliens come out, I was a kid when I watched it, and I remember hiding behind the sofa. That terrified me. That was mental.
Well, that's funny, because I mean, it wasn't the end of Close Encounters that terrified me. It was when they came and got the little boy, who clearly had never been in anything scary ever in his life. But
toys,
the poor I like the screws are lifting up from the vent, and the poor mother is trying to stop him from getting. Yeah, and he's just running around going, toys. Like, oh, what is wrong with you, kid?
let's move on because I've only just noticed the time, and we're not even halfway through the list yet. So next one, From Beyond. This was another Stuart Gordon with was it Jeffrey Combs again?
Yeah,
He was. Yeah,
he's in
that's
that
where he had the forehead penis.
Yeah. Jeffrey Combs is in it. Barbara Crampton returns this time, not nude, unfortunately, and Ken Foray from Dawn of the Dead. Jeff is in he's the partner to a sort of a S&M professor, and they're whipping up a machine to let them see things in another dimension. Well, it works a little too good, and the professor gets his head bitten off, and Jeff gets blamed for it. And so Barbara Crampton, who's clearly a mad scientist in the making, forces Jeff to go back with Ken Foray as a cop there to sort of, I guess, chaperone, and wants him to recreate what happened because she thinks he's in some sort of psychosis about him murdering the professor. And they turn the machine on, and things go haywire, and it triggers something in Barbara Crampton. It makes her keep wanting to turn it on, and it's a gore fest. It's really creepy and good, and no horror comedy in this one. This isn't straight, and man, it's got some good effects and some really good concepts in it. We get to see Barbara Crampton in a S&M outfit because the machine sort of triggers something in the pineal gland that I guess makes you really horny, and lets you see these other creatures. Which, when it's on, it also lets them have physical access to you, and I guess within the vicinity of the house. And yeah, it's another good one.
It's another sort of 80s classic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, the next movie, not that we're sort of moving briefly on from that, but the next movie we can skip over. It's called The Thing or something. It was all right.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Excuse me, sir. I'm doing my best here to produce this dang show. And you are just making it difficult.
Connection.
Where is it? Okay, hold on. I got
So basically, The Thing is in that. I think if you mention horror to anybody, it's got to be in their top 10.
Perfect horror.
Top 5, top 3 even.
Yeah. So for those of you who are not familiar with The Thing, basically it starts out. Off. What's that? Yeah.
Anybody who's not familiar with The Thing,
if you haven't watched it yet, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Is it a perfect movie just in general?
Yes.
I would say it is. It's got Kurt Russell along with a really good cast, actually. You got Keith David, of course, Donald Moffat, Richard Mauser. I'm trying to.
Can't fault the cast in it at all.
No, it's perfect.
Every one of them.
Wilford Brimley with the only thing I would fault is that Wilford Brimley is without a mustache, so you know bad things are going to happen because Wilford Brimley that's an unholy thing in my opinion. So you got they're in this Antarctic outpost doing some sort of research. I don't know why they're down there. And these Norwegians come on a helicopter trying to shoot a dog, and you don't know why. You don't know what's going on. You don't know why they're trying to shoot this dog. Something goes wrong. I'm trying to remember. I think something went wrong with their flares, or
he accidentally drops a thermite grenade he was going to throw at the dog.
That's right, and they blow themselves up. The dog. They're like, well, let's take in this dog. This is really weird. They go and investigate the Norwegians. They find all kinds of weird stuff. They find a big crater where the ship was, or maybe still is, and a little section of ice where they pulled out the alien. And they start to realize what's going on and that this alien can take the form of anybody. But what's really bizarre is that this alien is when he gets revealed, he just turns into the most grotesque things from your nightmares that you can think of. And it's the makeup effects and the special effects in there, which were all done practically and in camera.
Practical, yeah. I was going to say the practical effects. Oh,
they're fantastic, and there are such clever moments in there. And the two that I picked out in the article, one was when the doctor is giving one of the guys CPR. I think he's dead. The chest opens up, it cuts off his hands.
Yeah.
And for a second, there's a guy with no hands screaming, right? And it looks fantastic. Well, it turns out what they did was they took a cast of the actor's face, put it over a guy with no arms, and then had the bloody stumps, put blood all over his actual stumps. It was only like a 3-second moment, and it looks perfect. And then the even better one is that so Kurt Russell figures out that if you
Yeah.
hit the blood with something hot, that if it's the thing's blood, it will react.
Yeah, because every cell in the thing is sentient itself. So
correct. So they don't
never know who to trust throughout the whole thing either.
No, you don't, and that's the thing. You don't know who is who. So they take a blood sample from each of them, and at one point he's holding the blood, and they're using this fake hand. And he puts it in there and nothing happens. And then when they switch to the scene where he puts the wire in the blood and it reacts, they had to use a fake hand to make that all work, right? So by using it where it doesn't work, you think that that's normal, like you're lulled.
Yeah, you don't notice it's a fake hand at all.
You don't notice it's a fake hand because nothing happens. So why would they use a fake hand when nothing happens? Well, the truth is, it's to set you up for the actual moment when the thing pops, one of the best jump scares in history. And God, it's just a perfect movie. And of course, things continue to get out of control. They burn down the entire outpost.
Yeah, everything.
And it's just Keith David and Kurt Russell left. And you really don't know if either of them are the thing. I don't think Kurt Russell is, but
it's Childs is the thing. It's foreshadowed at the. I'm telling people this.
I don't think so. I disagree.
Listen, let me make my case. So at the beginning of the film, Kurt Russell's playing chess on that computer. He's drinking that booze, and he says, "Cheating bitches." He throws it in there, shorts it out and laughs. At the end of the movie, at the middle of the. Fuke says, "Don't eat or drink after anybody because any little particle from the thing will infect you and it'll take you over." Well, at the end of the movie, and once I finish that, I've got 2 other pieces of evidence to back me up. At the end of the movie, Kurt Russell hands him the bottle of booze, and he doesn't think twice. He doesn't wipe it off or anything. But he takes a swig, and then Kurt Russell starts laughing. Checkmate. He's got him. He knows he's got him. Screenplay says that Kurt Russell has a flamethrower hidden under his blanket, so he knows something's up. And it also says and the director I can't.
John Carpenter.
John
Carpenter over the years has said one of them is the thing. There's other things that lead up to it. The scene when McCready comes to tell Keith David we're going out to check on Wilford Brimley. The camera pans down to this basement door, and as it comes around, you see this side door that leads into a room that comes around to behind where Keith David is standing. Right, they go in, they do some things. We cut back to that. Same thing. That door's open. The other door's open. Some stuff's been rearranged. Keith David's gone. Wilford Brimley has come through there. Got him. You can see it all. It's all, if you watch it, you can see everything to tell you who's the thing is in the movie already.
Okay, so here's my rebuttal to this, and I think it's whether he intended it or not. I think that the idea of the ambiguous ending is what makes it a perfect movie.
Definitely.
And I don't want to know, and I don't want to know whether Childs or McCready are the thing, or they're fine and they just die. I don't want to know, because I think that ambiguousness that gets us talking about it, that's the part that to me is the cherry on top of a perfect movie. And so by saying I know for sure, you're saying that you're discounting the whole ambiguity of it.
End of discussion.
Yeah, that ruins it for me. Honestly,
I don't disagree with you on that. But I think it works on 2 levels. It's if you want it to be ambiguous, it's there. If you want to point it out, or but the movie also will give you enough hint to, So I
think the point of it is to be ambiguous, and I also want to point out that although this is completely unintentional, I think there is some symbolism thanks to The Thing 2011, which was a CG nightmare that sucked all kinds of suck. And
you're trying to remake a perfect film.
Yeah, you're trying to remake a perfect film. And so when McCready destroys the computer at the beginning, I see that as screw you, CGI.
Yeah,
that's just a new. Isn't it nice that an old movie can give you new layers of symbolism that you never even thought of before?
I've got to mention.
I rescind everything I said. That is absolutely what that scene is about.
I think it should be.
Yeah.
I think it absolutely should be. So that's just me.
I've got to mention the bit with the chest. The bit that still gets me is the fact that happens, and it's obviously horrifying. But then the head slowly pulls itself off
and then walks
down,
away as a
and
crab.
Then legs come out of it, and it's just, you're horrified at what's happened, and it's like the horror just doesn't stop. It's not like John Carpenter gives you a chance to breathe. You are then just it is fantastic. I haven't seen it in a long time, and that has got to go back on the list because it is such a good movie.
It is, and the things that, not to pun, but the things that they were able to do with these creatures, these abominations that were created, and there are times where it's just like, how are they doing this? Mm-hmm. It's like, how is it moving like that and doing so well? And the dog's face splits open, and all these tentacles are writhing in midair, and you're like, how did they do this?
It looks great.
It looks so amazing. So I think it was Botten that did that.
Rob Bottin.
Rob Bottin. I don't know how to pronounce it, but whatever way I've pronounced it wrong, I'm sure somebody will tell me in the comments. But it just a genius and a perfect film that I don't think will ever be topped in a creature feature. Not like that.
Oh, I agree.
Now I've skipped one over here, and funny enough, it's going sort of from one extreme to the other. Now I did The Haunting from 1963 by Robert Wise. Now, this to me is, again, it's another perfect film. There is nothing, I can't put a thing wrong with it. What I did like about it is, like I say, going from The Thing with all these wonderful special practical effects and everything else, in The Haunting, there is no monster. The house is the monster, and the way that it's played out with just music and sound effects and with the acting and some of the camera angles and so forth. I remember seeing it when I was a youngster, and I put it on probably only in the last couple of weeks again, just to sort of familiarize myself with it again. The way that it plays out and the camera angles, and I think it's just a brilliant film, but I think it's the perfect horror movie.
You're talking about the original.
The 1999 remake with Liam Neeson and Owen Wilson is a abomination. It's terrible. It's just, don't even go there. The original it's like I say, to me, it's almost the perfect horror in for like the haunted house type of way.
Did you?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. Did you see the Netflix show?
Yes.
What did you think of that?
Now, funny enough, I was not expecting much because I kept thinking, like the remake of The Thing, you shouldn't touch it and everything else. But I think what Mike Flanagan did and the way he took the story, and then it was the story based on the book, and there were a few sequences in a few of those episodes which I thought were absolutely fantastic, and the series I thought was excellent. There was one moment in particular, I forget which episode it was, and what I was doing was I was watching one episode at night, the wife had gone to bed, headphones on, blah, 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 and there was one moment where I hit the roof. The scare was perfectly done, perfectly timed, and so much so she came in and said, "Are you all right?" And I sort of went, "Yeah." She said, "What happened?" I said, "There was a really good jump." She's going, "You're right." I was like, "Yeah," because it was the TV series I actually thought was fantastic, and I really like Mike Flanagan as a director. I've just watched his new one as well, which I think is very good, The Haunting of Bly Manor, which is okay. It was weird for me because I love The Haunting so much, and like I say, the 1999 remake was absolutely bloody awful. It was terrible. But I think Mike Flanagan's series, there are moments in there which were proper terrifying.
Yeah, I like the remake of the Haunting of Hill House better than the 1997 Haunting, because at least it had the the balls to be ridiculous, and that there was sort of an entertainment value in that, whereas the Haunting tried to be a good remake and it just fell flat on its face. I mean, that's what I remember anyway.
The only bit I remember about the remake was when Owen Wilson's in the fireplace and the giant lion head swings through and bites his head off, and it was just this was the beauty of the original Haunting. Was there was, like I say, there was nothing overly dramatic or like I say, there was no monsters, there was no blood, and everything else. It was just played out with these brilliant actors. There's a bit where both, I think it's Claire Bloom and Julie Harris, are in a bedroom together, and they keep saying about how cold it is, and something starts banging on the wall outside, and the way it's played out, you are terrified with them. I absolutely love The Haunting, and it's one of my favorite films, nay horror films.
I've always kind of had like the ideal that I've always wondered if what's her name, the main character, is she manifesting that through her sort of she's got sort of a psychic power and the house facilitates it, or is it really haunted? I've never quite been able to decide on that myself.
I've never known the difference either. Like you say, that whether it's amplified by the house, because obviously she's there for the reason that Richard Johnson, I think it was, sort of says that she's there because she had a complete poltergeist experience where there was rocks thrown at the house for 3 days. And again, it was kind of around the time of the death of her mother, and that she may have caused that with with her own psychic ability, and whether the house brings it out. Again, I've never known. It's one of those things where it's kind of, I've never known, and I kind of don't want to know. What I know is that she goes to this house and things go bad. And I love The Haunting. I absolutely love it. It's one of those films I have seen it 100 times, and I'll watch it 100 times more, and I'll enjoy it every time.
I'll have to give it a try. I don't think I've ever seen the original. I've got so many things on my list, so I gotta give a shot, and it's just too much, It's
if only Hollywood stopped making movies for just a little while, we can all catch up.
I believe they did, and we didn't. That's on us now, I think. I can't blame anybody.
Sticking with the black and white theme, the next one that comes up on the list is another classic of Them.
Oh yes. Giant Atomic Monster, the best, other than Godzilla, the best of the Giant Atomic Monster films from that time. Ants, they get a little too big after the atomic bomb testing in New Mexico from World War II, and it starts out as a police thriller, it seems, and quickly turns into giant monster movie. Very much, I think there's a lot in common with Aliens. If you watch it, you can kind of see there's some similarities, but two state troopers find a girl wandering out in the desert. It's a mystery. Then they go on and they find a store tore to pieces. They can't figure out what it is. Eventually they find some footprints, and the government's, all-knowing government knows just who to send, a insect expert professor, and they put it together that it's mutated giant ants. So they get to track, they find the nest, and they go in there, and it's very much the ending scene of Aliens. But they find 2 queens have flown the coop. So they got to track down these queens before they get busy breeding. One of them lands on a ship. They're able to sink that, but the other one ends up in the sewer system of LA. What do you call that? And so they have to go underground, and it's a great movie. The ants look pretty good even for back then. They don't overdo it. So
it's the sound of the ants that's fantastic with it. The sound design, it still chills me today. I saw that when I was probably far too young to watch it. My dad had a thing about sort of, I want to say B movies, but I don't know whether this was a B movie or not, but it is absolutely brilliant, and it's so well done. And even today, watching it today, the effects do stand up. Like you say, the creatures were brilliantly done. Yeah,
we get to see 2 guys shooting ants with Tommy guns and flamethrowers, and it's very tense. You very much feel a race against time, and there's 2 missing boys at the end that they think went into the into the sewer system.
That's right.
You know, so you got that. It's a really great movie.
So I've got to tell a story about them. And if my mom is watching, she does watch this, and so I have to swear less now. She doesn't like me. She doesn't like me dropping F-bombs anymore, and it's probably a good, because YouTube doesn't like it either. But we watched them probably when I was a teenager, maybe early teenager. I don't remember. And I remember just laughing at the movie because I'm a teenager. These old black and white, they don't scare me. And my mom was just talking about it, like how it was so scary when she was young and at the time. And now, these days the movie has kind of garnered a certain amount of respect that perhaps it didn't have back in the 80s for whatever reason, maybe undeservedly so, or maybe just because I was a dick teenager who thought he knew everything. But I keep meaning to go back to it because I hear such good things about it as a movie, just in general, and for its history of being what it was. And they did build all those ants. You got to give them credit. I mean, they made some. They were all 50 feet long, whatever they were, and they went ahead and made it work and made it happen. So kudos to them for putting all that together. But I know my mom, it's one of her memorable favorites from when she was a kid and how much it scared her. And so I'm coming back and giving her kudos to loving a movie that was much better than I gave it credit for back in the day. So sorry, Mom.
She did the best she could, but sometimes
she did. She tried to indoctrinate me in the classics, and I rejected it, and thought I was just too cool for school. And now I know that I was a dumbass kid who didn't know anything. So there you go.
It's good to make amends.
I think so.
Then the next one was the Candyman. Now, Sean, did you watch this, or was it other Sean? No, it was other Sean.
It was the other one. Yeah.
I mean, this was the remake that we actually put into the 31 Days of Horror. I did see it, and I actually thought it was okay.
Yeah.
I think the way the director worked was, instead of the big shock, it was very much like the original Halloween, where in Halloween, the camera pans along, and then when it pans out, you've got out of focus Michael in the background, and it works so well because you're sort of screaming at the television to say, look behind you, type of thing. And I think the director did this in this new Candyman quite well. There are scenes where there's stuff in the background that you see and think, oh grief, something's going to go on here. But I felt the only problem with it was it was based around the Candyman. And I think Sean mentioned that in his review, that if it kind of was its own horror and own thing, it would have been a really great movie. But because they tried to do, like, I don't know if it was a remake or a sequel or a reboot or whatever it was, it just took that edge off, unfortunately. And it just wasn't. I mean, the original is, I wouldn't say it's a classic.
It's a minor classic, maybe.
Yeah, it's one of those films everybody's seen.
Yeah.
But I personally didn't sort of rate it that much when I saw it. And so watching the remake, I watched it out of just because it was on, and I thought I'd give it a try. But I wasn't massively blown away by it.
I watched the original fairly recently. I had never seen it before, and I don't know. I thought it was fine. Virginia Madsen gives a good performance. Tony Todd, of course, is pretty great in it, and it's intriguing. I had trouble being really scared by it, and there's a lot of odd juxtapositions of imagery. This is supposedly taking place in kind of like Cabrini Green, the slums of Chicago or New York or something. I can't remember where it was. And so you have a lot of that city crime and that urban decay and that kind of stuff. And yet he's always got bees coming out of everywhere for some reason.
Yeah, even the original, I thought that was weird. It's like, this is a guy died in the pre-Civil War era or whatever, and he somehow ends up in the slums of Chicago or whatnot. It's like, what? I don't get it. How did he end up there?
There's just some odd juxtapositions with the imagery. They have these voodoo paintings all over the place, but he's got this hook hand for reasons,
Yeah.
and then it's like, we'll just throw all sorts of weird stuff onto him, and that'll be creepy. And I mean, it's not a bad movie. I mean, I can see why it's kind of garnered a bit of a cult following. I understand the sequels are garbage, but I didn't see the remake yet, so I couldn't really comment on it. But I felt the original was perfectly fine, but not. I don't know why it's considered kind of a classic.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Yeah. So
it's like the Dr. Giggles or something, it's okay, but it's not,
Yeah.
The next one was coming back to Dan O'Bannon again, although somebody made the comment, it's Dead and Buried, which I'd never seen, and I'd always seen the poster of the half-buried face.
God, I'm going to step away for just a minute. I'm going to mute, and I'll be right back in just a minute or two. So carry on.
Fine.
No, Dead and Buried, I'd seen the poster a lot, and I thought, I'll finally get around to watching that. This was great. This was really good. The story is local villagers have a thing about killing people. And it starts off with a good photographer, and he's on a beach, and he's just taking photos, and there's a beautiful woman there, and he gets talking to her, and he starts taking photos of her, and then she says, "Do you want me?" And he sort of says, "Well, yeah." And then the rest of the villagers turn up and brutally murder him. But then the bodies start coming back to life, and there is a really good explanation of why. I think I said this in the review that I'm not going to spoil it, but this was a really well told story and a really good 80s horror that I missed, which I'm quite annoyed at myself about. Have you seen it?
I am not. I don't think I'd ever heard of it until I read this article on it. So I'm not horribly familiar with it, but it's I agree that poster, I have it up on the screen now, is a fantastic poster. And just as an aside, I miss movie posters. I miss bizarre art, that were painted. Everything's a Photoshop nightmare.
Not only that, but also everything's photoshopped in exactly the same way. There are certain posters out there, they're all done in that orange, and there's one main character, and they're all, it's like you say, they literally swap the faces over.
Yeah, teal and orange, and the floating heads of the stars above some scene, or you got somebody with his back to you, or they got the words over the face. I mean, it's all so samey.
That poster for Dead and Buried, like I say, I'd seen it all over the place, and I kept thinking that looks really great. I need to give that a watch, and I watched it this month, blown away by it. Absolutely, really, really, really well done horror movie.
What are we talking about?
Dead and Buried.
Okay.
Still, it was. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a very well told story. There were some parts which I thought were obvious that you knew where they were going, but then there were parts which were not obvious and you didn't know where they were going. And I think that was really, really well done by the director. But somebody said, because I said it was by Dan O'Bannon, and then somebody said apparently he left it quite early, or something or other, so that he was his name on it, but he didn't actually do much with it, which is a shame, because I think it, like I say, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
Well, is it on streaming somewhere?
Probably.
Clearly, you were prepared.
I found it on streaming, so it must be. But I do subscribe to one or two places. Next one, Dawn of the Dead. Now, this was the original, I'm taking it, or was it the 2004? Or was it both?
No, I just talked about the original.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take us through that one. Premise.
Sequel to Night of the Living Dead, and just drops us straight in the middle of it. We're already past the point of the outbreak, and this is sort of like this. Starts from sort of we're still trying to contain this, and there's still sort of a hope, and we're introduced to two of the main characters. They work for the local Philadelphia news station, and they're getting ready to make a run for it. Then it cuts to some guys on a SWAT team that are about to make some evictions, and they go into a building, and we get to see, the reason for this is they're trying to get everybody out to go to the evacuation zones, and some people are being stubborn. They won't take the shot. I mean, they won't do what they're told. And so they see, it's too much for them. That one of the SWAT cops is friends with one of the news people. The guy, he's the traffic helicopter. So they all leave together. We get to see they stop for gas at some point on their flight towards Pittsburgh, where Ken Foray mows down 2 zombie kids. I know that's popular.
Which one is this? This is Dawn of the Dead?
Dawn, yeah.
I thought it was mostly in a shopping mall.
Well, they get so then they go on to the shopping mall.
When I said a brief overview, what I meant was the one in the shopping mall.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's the one in the mall.
There we go. It is. I mean, that was an excellent way to introduce it. But I mean, it's like I say, if you've seen it, it's the one in the shopping mall, and that's the one which kind of, I don't want to say made him famous, but it was the one where sort of Tom Savini all of a sudden sort of popped out of nowhere, and it was like, oh, Tom Savini.
It's Romero's best zombie film, without in my opinion.
Yeah. It's the start of Romero Hates Capitalism.
Yeah.
He sticks it in all of his, because that third one was, I think it was Land of the Dead, where they had the giant, what do you call it? The like it was a city, but everybody lives in decadence.
Oh, that's Land of the Dead.
Land of the Dead, and then you have oh God, what's his name? Why can't I remember anybody's name now? The guy, the bad guy in Speed. He's been around forever.
Yeah,
Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper, yeah. And Dennis Hopper has to shoot a guy while he's trying to get away with money, which makes no sense in this post-apocalyptic wasteland. George Romero hates capitalism. That's fine, whatever.
I've always wondered if he hates capitalism just because he didn't copyright Night of the Living Dead, and so everybody else everybody else got rich off of it, but him from his own mistake. But he's like sour grapes,
Sour grapes. Because it's public domain now, isn't it? Night of the Living Dead. Yeah.
I mean, with it, we do have to mention, like I say, that it is brilliant, the first one, but then we have to give some credit to Zack Snyder for his 2004 remake.
It's a really good. It's as far as remakes go, that's how you do a remake if you're going to remake.
Yeah. The problem with that is that it made Zack Snyder a name.
Unfortunately.
So we end up with things like Man of Steel and Justice League and Batman v Superman because of that.
Don't mention Man of Steel, because there's a few people on our talkback who still love that.
hey, he fooled us with 300.
I thought I like 300 pretty good.
He is an upcoming guy, and then he did Batman v Superman. He went, what in the world?
300. It was 300 and Watchmen, but I think both of those worked because they were based on stuff that he didn't write.
Yeah.
I disagree on Watchmen.
Oh, really?
Yes, he follows the story for the most part perfectly.
Oh, until
and the lack of the squid doesn't bother me. But the part that bothers me the most is that he made everybody look so cool. And that is not the point of the story. These are broken down losers who try to be superheroes, but they've got such problems because of it. And looking so awesome, they should look ridiculous, and they don't. And that's part of the problem, It's
See, I always thought Night Owl did look stupid.
Yeah,
I always felt for him and sort of looked at him and sort of thought, really, you're going around dressed like that?
Well, when they were like breaking him out of the prison and everything, I mean, like they got Rorschach pretty much correct. He looked pretty bad. And that was correct in my opinion, but everybody else looked too good and it looked too slick. It should have been dirtier, grittier or something. And it was so artsy and so well.
He's old.
You can't put 300 into Watchmen. You can't do it that way.
He suffers from the fact that he puts too much slow motion, far too much slow motion into his films.
that made the movie 4 hours long instead of 2.5 like it should have been. But
20 minutes.
Anyway, we're off topic again.
Right. Okay. So let's get back. So the next one was it? Oh, see, I've got them all written down here wrong. Well, we'll just go through the list as I've got them. So the next one was Night of the Creeps. That was one of yours, wasn't it, Sean?
Yeah. That's another great one. That's directed by Fred Decker, probably the last decent thing he ever did. And I don't know how to wrap that one up real fast. Sci-fi horror slasher, a little bit. It's another love letter to the genre.
It's funny because I think I have seen that this month. I've definitely seen it recently, and again, I can't really tell you what the story was about because it's kind of one of those films that it's difficult to sum it up.
Yeah, basically these aliens turn loose accidentally, these little slugs that they'll go in your mouth and it kills you. They take over your brain, and then you're sort of a walking corpse, and your purpose is to spew out more slugs to take over other people. And they get turned loose at a college, and the sorority. The best part everybody remembers is at the end of the sorority girls. At their house, all their dates arrive, and they're all infective, and he says, good news and bad news, girls. Your dates are here. The bad news is they're all dead. And it's a lot of fun.
That's a tagline on the poster, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, another 80s classic. This one was one of mine because I still love this. Gremlins. Now, you can't beat Gremlins. I mean, it's one of those films where just everything works in that movie. Even though some of the... it's weird that I thought none of the stars kind of went off to do anything afterwards, sort of massively big. But Billy Peltzer...
Wait a minute. Dick Miller's in it.
Yeah, I know you. Dick Miller, obviously, but Dick Miller's always been great. I mean, the guy's fantastic. But Gremlins is just one of those films that works on so many levels. It's entertaining. It is heartwarming in places. The whole bit where Phoebe Cates says about how her father died at Christmas and everything else is, it's heartbreaking. And then you've got these practical effects, apart from sort of one or two places, and it's just I love Gremlins.
Now, it also has the greatest troll of a sequel ever created.
Yeah.
I mean, when you got a guy who just doesn't want to do it, so he makes Gremlins 2. And I think the funniest part is when they get to that kind of that moment, like the Santa Claus moment in Gremlins.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Oh, this is like Arbor Day. Oh God, I had an aunt that died," and Billy's just getting her. Yeah, whatever. Get out of here, man. Get out of here. They don't even care. Like she's got a tragedy for every freaking holiday, apparently. So, and they just went all out with Gremlins 2, and it's like, it's almost a middle finger to the studios or something because they didn't want to make it. And then I love both of the movies.
Yeah.
Joe Dante always said that the second one was actually his favorite. So from not wanting to make it, and then obviously what he did do with it is kind of, no, actually, yeah, I quite enjoy that now.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, it was he got to do whatever he wanted to do, and he did a meta movie when meta movies weren't a thing.
Yeah.
And so the first one, great. It's just a straight up horror comedy. That really works as straight up, on the surface. It works perfectly.
I always love the fact that with the second one, the creatures that they came up with, like the one that was made of vegetables and everything else, I imagine sort of Joe Dante going to the guys, "Have you come up with these? We wrote some down last night. I think I was a little bit drunk. Right, see what you think."
Yeah. There's an electricity
spider one. But then Joe Dante went, "Yep, we'll do that." Yeah. Vegetable one, brilliant. Yeah, love it.
One that's made out of electricity.
Yeah, love it. Do it. Yeah.
Is Tony Randall available? He's been looking for work. Oh, I've got the part for him.
Hey, I tell you, I unapologetically love The Burbs too. Speaking of Joe Dante, I love The Burbs.
Oh, I do too. Great movie.
Yeah, absolutely. But my favorite bit of that is where they're just all, is it Corey Haim sat on the porch with his friends and just drinking and watching, going, "I'll watch this because now he's going to go over there," and stuff. Yeah, it's
just running commentary through the whole thing.
Great movie.
The next one was, I think, again, it was one of yours, Sean, which was Targets.
Yeah. A lot of people probably have not heard of this one. This is a classic.
I hadn't.
Peter Bogdanovich, of all people, and it's sort of two stories that seem to be separated but then connect at the end. One of them is this guy that's mentally ill goes on a shooting spree, a random shooting killer, and then you got Boris Karloff, who plays this actor that's retiring, and they're trying to talk him into doing one final appearance at a drive-in theater before he calls it quits, and sort of the two intersect at the end at the drive-in, for a big climactic. I won't say shoot 'em up, but obviously.
I have put this on my list because the way that when reading the article, it sounded really interesting.
It is.
And would you class it though as a horror? It didn't sound like a horror. It sounded more like a thriller.
I mean, it's as much of a horror as Threads, I guess.
Okay.
I've seen it on other people's horror lists, so I thought, really, I just used it as an excuse to tell more people about the movie, I guess. And
just because Boris Karloff in it doesn't make it a horror.
That's true. I'm sure it was very. Come here. I'm sure it was very horrific at the time to think of something like that.
Yeah.
But it's a great movie.
When did it come out? What year? Is this an older one?
Yeah, like
late 70s, I think it was.
Maybe, or late, maybe even late 60s.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but yeah, it was very. It's pretty old.
1968.
Oh, there you go. I really fancy it. I think it looks good. We're going to skip one of these because I know it was sent in by one of the outposters. So no offense to that outposter, we're going to skip it. But then we're going to go on to The Man with the X-Ray Eyes, which actually do you know what? I only watched recently, very recently. The Man with the X-Ray Eyes. Now, I love Roger Corman. Roger Corman is fantastic. He's a man who has wonderful passion, but didn't always have budget in his films. Do you know what? I actually found
I think he saw that as a badge of honor.
But then, funny enough, I actually thought The Man with the X-Ray Eyes was actually quite well produced.
It is. It looks as good as any big budget movie at the time. There wasn't, and it's a really great story. Scientist is self experiments on himself to try to get X-ray vision to help diagnose patients, and things go sideways pretty quick. And
my two favorite bits in it is one where the scientist lights his cigarette with a Bunsen burner, because obviously that's what all scientists did back in the 60s. But also the scene where he goes to the party and everyone's naked. Because what made me laugh about that is it's filmed very discreetly, so you don't see anything. But obviously, if women are wearing bras, everything's just going to be squashed. And obviously, that wouldn't have been filmed if he had filmed it in a different way. Everything just would have been hanging and flopping around and everything else. But that wouldn't have been the case because, like I say, everything would have been. And like I say, I think I watched it this week.
Did you like it quite a bit, you said?
Oh, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I say, I think Roger Corman was one of those guys. I recently also watched his Fantastic Four, which was, it was terrible, but so terrible I actually enjoyed it. Whereas this was, like I say, a really well-produced movie and really, really well made, apart from, like I say, there was a few silly bits, like I say, with the light of the cigarette and stuff like that. But overall,
it starts very lighthearted, doesn't it? Right up until like. And then it kind of seems like it's beach blanket bingo at the the dancing part, and then it gets like really dark really fast, and
the actual ending is it's really scary because his eyes are almost bleeding and everything, and it was it was I like I say I really enjoyed it. Now the next one is this was one of mine, Midnight Meat Train. Now, somebody I think on Twitter recommended this, and I thought what's always put me off is the fact that Vinnie Jones is on the front, and Vinnie Jones actually gets top billing over Bradley Cooper because it was kind of pre-fame Bradley Cooper. But this was fantastic. It was really, really good. Basically, Bradley Cooper's a photographer. And he's told to get gritty scenes from the subway. I think it's in New York or wherever. All films are filmed in New York in America. And he ends up finding that this guy who apparently is killing people on the subway. But that's kind of only just scratching the surface of what this story is. And the way it plays out, what got me is, in this kind of a spoiler, is I didn't realize until the end that it was written by Clive Barker.
Yeah, from one of his books of blood, I believe.
And the way the story, because I thought, how are they going to pan this out? It's just going to be an hour and a half of Vinnie Jones running around killing people, but it's not that. And I think the secret with the film is to not have Vinnie Jones talk. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Clearly a moment in his favor, I guess.
If I ever saw Vinnie Jones in real life, I would run a mile because he would, kick my head in. But and like I say, as an actor, he's terrible. But in this, he's really good because they just keep him quiet, and it's a real hidden gem of a horror movie if people haven't seen it. And don't be put off by the fact that Vinnie Jones is in it. I know Vinnie Jones doesn't talk like me, like proper English, but
I'm trying to think what would I have seen Vinnie Jones in? Because I'm not. I know the name.
Seconds.
What? Gone 60 Seconds. Was he the Juggernaut?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that explains it. All right. I'm trying to think. Where have I seen him?
He's been in. If you've seen Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and the other early Guy Ritchie one. Actually, see, again, in both of those, I thought he was very good because he played the Londoner, and he does that London accent quite well. And in both of those films, he was quite good. Midnight Meat Train is definitely worth a watch. If
yeah, it is. It's a sleeper.
Yes, absolutely. So next one I think was again yours, Sean. That was The Host.
Oh yeah, South Korean horror monster movie. Great movie. Some evil white American stationed in South Korea dumps some formaldehyde down a drain. It goes into the Han River and mutates a fish or a tadpole or something into this beast, and it comes out and rampages one summer, steals a few people away to take back for food later, and we get to watch a family. They try to track it down to rescue their daughter. It's a great movie.
I haven't seen it for a long time, but I do remember when I watched it, loving it. So again, it's kind of one I need to revisit.
Yeah. It was.
I remember seeing it a while back when it first came out. I think 2006 or something like that.
Yeah, about that.
But it was. I remember it being a lot of fun, and it works because you really like the family. And or not the family, I think it's a father-daughter thing.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so you really are rooting for him to get his daughter back, and then of course it's got some decent effects and everything in there, so it works.
Yeah, it's good.
We're gonna not skip the next one, but there was a whole article on haunted house movies. Top 10, so we're not going to go through all of them. Again, go to the website lastmovieoutpost.com to have a read of that because it is a really good read. When I remember I did I had a look through it, and it's kind of just scroll through. Yep, hauntings on there, that's fine. that was all I was worried about, but the rest of them are very good, and there are some very good movies in there. But the number one on that list, actually then coming back to this now, is The Shining. Not many people have heard of this movie. I mean, again, it's one of those films where, to me, absolute perfection. Every single frame is perfectly done from beginning to the end of the credits.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny how this is the version that Stephen King doesn't like.
Yeah.
And he makes his own. And I remember seeing it, like, it came out in 97,
yeah,
this miniseries, and it's just god awful. But this is...
Apparently, King liked that series.
Well, he made it. He commissioned it. Yeah, I think.
Oh, okay,
He wanted his own version of it. And it's just garbage. It's like he doesn't understand his own story properly or something. But the Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall, I guess poor Shelley Duvall. She's got a lot of mental problems now, and I am convinced that what Stanley Kubrick did to her added to that, at the very least, if it wasn't the catalyst, because he just put this poor woman through hell. So when you see her just desperate and crying and scared, it ain't acting anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's not even shouting action or cut or anything.
No. She's pretty convinced that Nicholson's going to kill her, and I'm pretty convinced Nicholson is. So, well done.
What I did mention in my article on this is there is a great documentary called Room 237.
I've seen it. It's awesome.
Some of the fan theories, I know it's not true, but I like to believe it's true that The Shining was Stanley Kubrick's apology to everybody for filming the fake moon landings. Because there is so many sort of subtexts of tied in, because Danny's wearing the Apollo jumper and all this kind of stuff. And like I say, I know it's not true, but at the same time, it kind of makes sense in that weird way. And my brain sort of goes, might be true, you know. No, it's not. I know it's not true. Yeah, but it could be. You know.
I don't know. Did any of you guys see Doctor Sleep?
I did.
Yes.
I watched it. Yeah.
You know, I feel like that was a pretty darn good sequel, except at the end when they went, because the original book ends where the Overlook is burned down to the ground.
Yeah.
And the movie, of course, doesn't. So they tried to adapt that book, but they wanted to make a sequel to the movie. And so, unfortunately, it ends up being a pretty darn good movie, but then they get to the end, and the horrific visions that you saw in The Shining, like the guy in the rabbit costume giving oral sex to some other guy, and just the weird stuff, all that is in there, but now it's almost like they're tools being used, like they're pieces of equipment that you just sick on somebody. It's very bizarre, and it takes all of those odd visions and everything and turns them into something that doesn't work for me.
Well, the book, that's the way they were in the book too. In the Dr. Sleep book, is that he sort of uses them he calls them up out of his whatever, his subconscious,
out of his box. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like going, this. You know, you don't know why you're seeing these visions. You don't know what the history is of them. You don't know what's going on there. So you don't know what you know, like at the end you see him in the picture and things like that. Now I will say him going to the bar and seeing his dad tending bar this time for him. And the guy playing Jack Nicholson as Jack Torrance is Elliot from E.T., which was...
That's because Mike Flanagan likes working with him.
I guess so, but that really threw me. But it's really well done as far as that scene goes.
I felt it suffered with the casting, Dr. Sleep. If you could have CG'd Jack Nicholson into it.
Yeah, they should have. They could have done that now, you know.
Maybe I did it. You know, I don't think it was that bad. I don't think he did that bad of a performance. I just
don't you kind of miss? You know, would you have preferred it being like a very de-aged Jack Nicholson though?
Yeah, but then again, I can't imagine Jack
would
have
given
back.
his blessing. I have a feeling he wouldn't.
Yeah, probably not. That's probably why they didn't do it.
Hi, Jack. Any chance you want to go back to the Overlook?
He's sitting on his yacht right now. He doesn't give a shit. So, I don't know. I felt the scene was good. It was when he sicked all the visions, the twin girls and all that stuff on the girl, and just like they were all just there, ready to stuck in whatever mode that they're in. Something didn't ring right with me, and I don't know how to explain it.
It felt a bit obvious.
I mean,
obviously they were building it all the way through.
It took the teeth out of them.
But you know that sums up Stephen King's last 10 years of writing ability, though, don't it? I think because in the book, that was the book. Straight out of the book. That's not like Hollywood's, messing around with the Dr. Sleep. That he thought that up on his own.
No, I agree. I agree, and I don't think. I just think it came off badly, and the shame is that in general the rest of the movie is pretty darn good.
Yeah, it's decent. The whole scene where they eat that kid is
that's horrific.
That was rough. That was kind of a scene you didn't think they would get away with, but yeah. So moving on.
Would have been easier on the audience if they just shot the kids instead of that, you know.
Yeah. Well, again, more child murder. I approve.
Yeah. The next one was again another classic, American Werewolf in London. That was one of yours, wasn't it, Yoda?
It was not, but I
Oh.
will talk about it because it certainly is one that I'm fairly familiar with, and it's definitely one that is high on my list. It's a very simple story. The reason why American Werewolf in London is so well remembered and liked is the transformation scene, which is absolutely amazing and absolutely horrific.
And it's still excellent today as well.
It is because it's all done in camera and it's all done with practical effects, and it's just it's like the up until then, I think werewolf movies they showed like a series of fades from one to the next to the next, and now he's a werewolf. And this one was just like, we're going to show you the most painful transformation we could possibly show, and then when you have like happy music while he's goring somebody to death, I love that stuff. I love Griffith Dunn in there. He keeps deteriorating until you got to kill yourself, man. You got to kill yourself.
And he's slowly getting worse as the movie goes on as well, isn't he? He's like, look at the state of me. And
you got to kill yourself. Why aren't you killing yourself? So it's and that's it. I mean, that's the whole movie. A couple of college kids, they go and they get off the path, they get attacked. One guy is killed, the other guy gets infected with werewolf venom, syndrome. Whatever. And then for the next month, he turns into a werewolf. He gets told he needs to kill himself. He falls in love with Jenny Agutter, which I don't blame him. And then finally he gets shot and did he get shot and killed? Or
I can't remember now at the end.
Yeah, because he just transforms back and he's dead.
Yeah.
And I don't remember.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but I can't remember now.
Yeah, but he just gets killed at the end.
I was thinking he does something to cause his own death, though. Isn't it sort of an indirect suicide, though?
Something like that. I just know he gets killed at the end, and that's the end of the movie. It's very simple. But when you got all that fun music, and he's just reading a book and everything's quiet, and all of a sudden he goes, Jesus, he's having the worst, like his head is about to explode, and then it
kind of almost literally does.
Oh God, it's just horrifying. Man, so great movie, great.
If you've not seen it, you've got to. It's got to go on the list of movies that people have watched.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not quite horror comedy, but it's almost
very tongue in cheek.
Yeah,
but it's not played for laughs. Like it's not a parody or something. It's very horrific. It's scary.
Yeah.
But it's also got these bizarre, odd comedic moments in it, and it strikes as it's a tone I can't even describe because I don't think I've seen many movies that have been able to replicate it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's brilliant. It's just great. Last couple then. So, last three actually, because I did The Fly. Now, I initially started talking about The Fly, the original with Vincent Price in it, which I still genuinely love. I watched it recently, and it's a great movie and a great premise, but they don't think about the plot details very well, because in the original movie, the guy goes through the transporter with a fly in there, but the teleporter transplants his head and arm onto a fly, and the fly's head and arm onto him. And that kind of doesn't make obviously any sense, because obviously the fly's head would be this big on his neck, and it's the size of a human head and a human arm. But it's what's great about it is a clever story, but it's the ending of the movie.
Oh yeah,
with the spider.
Help me!
I watched that far too young, and it was terrifying, that end sequence, because you've got basically, we are going to spoil it, they think that the wife has killed the husband, because at the start of the movie he's had his arm and head crushed, and she tells this story about how he got transplanted and everything else. And so they say, but if we could only find the fly with the human head and the human arm, then we could prove it, that she was telling the truth. And nobody can find it, but right at the very, very end, the kid says, "Oh, I found the fly," and it's trapped in a spider's web, and it's this fly's body with this head, and this spider comes closer, and he's going, help me, and this thing grabs him, and like I say, I was horrified as a child, absolutely. Oh, it was.
What I never understood there, George, is that so is it the fly's brain? But he can speak English, or
exactly, like I say, because also they keep looking for this fly. So you think, right, if the guy's head is his head, why doesn't he just fly back into where they can find him, as opposed to just banging into a window?
I always kind of figured it was a little bit of like one conscious battle, because he's he's still like having trouble keeping it together with the fly head and arm. So I figured it was sort of reverse with the fly. A little bit of the human would come through, but not enough to control, while
enough to speak English, apparently.
Yeah, well, hey.
It's
think about it too much.
Yeah, if you think about it, it wrecks it. I agree, but it is
great. It was a great idea, but then, I mean, as I was writing the article, I thought to myself, I've got to then go on to the remake, because the remake fixed all those issues and brought in somebody like David Cronenberg, who then fixed the issues of not having, a fly's head and a fly's arm. But when he goes through the teleporter with the fly, the teleporter then basically splices the DNA together, and he slowly then starts transforming into this fly. And again, the remake it's fantastic.
Yeah, I love the remake tremendously. It's Jeff Goldblum and Gia Davis, they do a fantastic job. You've got the horrifying ending where she realizes she's pregnant. And was it before? Was it after? Of course, then the Fly 2 kind of ruins everything. But
Just watch the first one. Don't watch the second one.
Don't watch the second one. But I never forgot, for some reason, and maybe this is just the way. I always wondered if it was improv or something like that. When Goldblum is getting ready to eat, he just barfs all over his food.
Oh
yeah.
And then he kind of realizes, like, oh, I'm sorry, that's disgusting, isn't it?
I've been doing this for a few days now. I'm used to it, but you haven't seen it yet.
It's like it's natural to him now, to do this. And he's like, oh wait, that's just like he remembers, and I don't know why, that just kind of hit me. It's one of those things I just never forgot,
And it's the end as well, where the other guy comes in to save them, and then he barfs on his hand, and his hand melts away. And, again, it was a stroke of genius to get somebody like Cronenberg in to do that.
That's a film only Cronenberg could make too. Nobody else would.
Yeah. And then he splits apart at the end, and his head, and good stuff.
It's like I say, I love both the original, but the original, like you say, you can't overthink it, whereas the remake is a perfect remake which fixes the issues that the original just didn't have in it.
Right.
And then
I can't even remember what was the original. What was the experiment? Was it a teleporting experiment as well?
Yeah.
At first he puts through a plate, I think it is, and when it gets to the other side, it says "Made in China," I think, on the back, but it's reversed, and so obviously he then has to fix that, and then he does it, and then he puts the cat through, but the cat never reappears. And then he fixes that, but then obviously when he tries it on himself, this fly ends up in there, and so but it was just a teleportation device that he was working on.
Okay, I got you.
And then the last one this was one of yours, Sean. I think it was Night of the Comet.
Yeah, Night of the Comet. Comet passes over the Earth. Anybody caught outside gets basically turned into red dust, and if you were in a steel building, you're protected, but if you were in something that kind of protected you, they're somewhere in between. And end of the world apocalyptic movie, but two teenage girls in LA, and it's a lot of fun.
It's one of those films that I just love it. It's great. It's one of those films. It's quite, I don't want to say silly, but I like it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Also, I've got to mention Catherine Mary Stewart. Is her name?
Yeah.
I had such a crush on her when I was growing up. She was in The Last Starfighter, as well, which was just again one of the greatest science fiction films ever made. It's I still love that.
Yeah,
But
I do too.
she was just. I think I only watched it initially because she was in it, but then I was treated to the whole movie of Night of the Comet, which was just a great movie.
Yeah, it's a blast. It knows what it is. It doesn't take it seriously.
Yeah,
it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah,
well, I got a lot of watching to do apparently today if I'm going to get it done before Halloween is over.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, no, you're right because you're behind us. So yeah, you got a few hours. You're fine.
I was told there'd be no homework, but apparently,
I think actually everything on the list I have seen. I think, apart from Targets, is the only one that I've got to put on my list to try and watch.
Was there anything on my Beyond 31 Days that you hadn't seen? Have you seen that yet?
No. Again, I am terrible because I kind of watch everything in the entire universe ever. I kind of feel bad sometimes because there are films that come out and I think to myself, I don't really want to watch it, and then I end up watching it. I'm just trying to find the list now for Beyond 31 Days. No, I think actually there was only one or two on there. You did mention Green Room, which I think is an incredibly underrated horror film. It's fantastic because it's not horror, but it's like real life horror, as opposed to, obviously sort of zombies and vampires and all this kind of stuff. It was kind of like a real life horror. I can imagine being in that movie more than the others. Dead Heat I haven't seen. Miss 45 I haven't seen. It Follows I have seen and I did like it. The Sentinel I watched recently was I can't say I was a massive fan. There were good moments in it. Stage Fright I must admit I haven't seen. Green Room I have. A Maximum Overdrive I haven't seen for a long time, but I do remember enjoying it. I've got homework as well. Then
I've got to say it is a bit of a crime that we had none of the Evil Deads on there, because Evil Dead 2 is probably one of my favorite horror movies ever. Even though it's horror comedy, it's
still quite scary.
Yeah, it's got some
scares in it, but it's also just. It's just fantastic. Now, the first Evil Dead movie, I think, is genuinely scary without any of the comedic elements in there.
Yeah.
And then you get to Army of Darkness, which is just basically just
superhero
Bruce Campbell just having fun. Yeah.
Klaatu, Barada.
When they're doing the Three Stooges, with the skeleton hands in the ground, he actually does this and they do this.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And they're just at by the end they're just throwing skeleton dummies at him. It's just off camera. They're just throwing dead dummies at him and he's just knocking them away.
I've got to say, actually, I've got to say the remake. The recent remake, I think it's like 2013 odd, was actually really decent.
It was gruesome and pretty straightforward. There was no comedy in that, that's for sure.
No. Yeah, it was highly gruesome.
Yeah, but if it wasn't confusing, like you have the first Evil Dead, and then the second one, he goes back to the cabin, or it's possibly a reimagining of the first one.
No. Raimi said that up until he runs outside is basically just a quick retelling of the first movie.
Without the other people that were there.
Right. It's basically a remake of the first one, but it catches you up to speed. That's what Raimi himself said about it. Because I wondered about that for years, too. I was like, what the hell did this guy go back for?
I know. And then you get to the third one, and you have, it's basically a straightforward time travel story, and he ends up back at his job at Walmart or whatever they call it. And then you get to the remake, and the remake has a post-credit scene with him at the end going groovy. And then you got Ash versus the Evil Dead show, which apparently picks up 20, 30 years after Evil Dead. Or after Army of Darkness, I mean. And I don't know if it includes that one.
No, it actually skips Army of Darkness because he said they didn't have the legal rights to it, so it takes place after part 2, which it's.
I like the fact that 2 might have been him returning to the thing. You want to go back there? Yeah, it was nice. You don't remember anything happened? No. The deers and the people in the. No, I just remember we had a good time. We went
Yeah.
fishing and
What happened to your
completely
friends?
blanked out.
I don't know.
You know, speaking of horror TV series, I wanted an honorable mention. And I think last year you guys, somebody on the website started to talk about it, but they never did pick it up. But that Spanish horror TV series, 30 Coins, that is really good, and you should definitely watch that. It is a Lovecraftian horror story. I think there's 10 or so episodes, and it is superb. It's all subtitles, but it is great. HBO showed it, and it is great.
It'll go on the list. When you say it's Lovecraftian, is it actually Lovecraftian, or was it like Lovecraft, the other TV series?
No. It's Lovecraft. Yeah, it's.
Because I was really looking forward to that series, and it was thoroughly disappointing.
No, it's legit. You'd like it. It's very good.
It'll go on the list. Brilliant. Okay, guys. Well, like I say, we've gone ever so slightly over time.
Up on a half hour, 40 minutes. Well, it was a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, it was a lot of movies.
Yeah.
But, Sean, thanks for joining us here. You're always welcome to come back. Dom is completely unreliable. He's got a family, whatever. So,
priorities, Dom. Priorities.
God dang it. So, but no, we always and we'll take on a lot of guests if you guys want to come on and talk with George and I on various different movies or topics. We're, fire up your Skype. We're always happy to have people here. We are thelastmovieoutpost.com. You can reach us at www.lastmovieoutpost.com, where you will find all our social networks lined up at the top of the page, including Twitter @MovieOutpost. My Twitter is @DrunkenYoda1, and you are @NotGeorgeLucas1.
Yep.
We also have our email if you have any tidbits or information, some saucy news stories that you would like to, if you're an insider, you like to send us, or you just want to contact us just to tell us we're doing a great job, you can reach us at contactus@lastmovieoutpost.com. I think I got it all. Did I get it all?
I think so.
All right, then. So thank you very much for showing up, and thank you for watching, and we will see you on the next live stream.